everyone, and welcome back to our serialization tutorial series. This is where we're going to start our programming. In the last video we talked about why it's important to, or what kind of serialization you can use and why it's important for us in this instance to use JSON.NET, and I'll explain that a little bit better as we go along. But I went ahead and created three classes, class files, armor data, item data, and weapon data. We can go ahead and load that in Visual Studio, which I've already done because it takes a long time to load it up. I went ahead and created the first class, but these other ones are still in their base form. So let's go ahead and copy this over, put it in these, and then change this to weapon data, which inherits from item data. And then we're going to do the same thing with armor data. Change that to armor. Okay, so in the item data class, every single item, and I don't want this to be an abstract class because there are going to be items like quest items that are going to be just of the item data class. But armor data is going to extend that, and then same thing with weapons. Okay, so for this, all I want to do is say private string m name and then private int m cost. So all I want is to have a name and a cost for every single item in this game. So let's go ahead and do a public getter and setter. Name. Oh, sorry. Should probably put the name before that. Return m name. Set m name equals value. Copy that. Int cost. Oops. Copy that. Alright, and then I'm also going to put a getter and setter, or not a getter and setter, constructor. And because I know I'm going to want it later, I'm going to go ahead and put a default constructor without any parameters and put this new item. And then the default cost is going to be 10. And then just empty brackets, because I don't want it setting anything here. I want it to, when you call the default constructor, I want it to call the other constructor and assign default values and then do nothing of its own. So then here I'm going to say m name equals name, cost equals cost. Okay, so that's all we really need for item data. However, I want to explain real quick that when JSON.NET goes through and reads all of these files, you don't need system.serializable. You might need it for other things like putting it in Unity and getting it to work, but you don't need it for JSON.NET. However, JSON.NET will go through this item data and only serialize public attributes or properties. So this is going to be serialized and this will be serialized. These will not. So you should have a getter and setter, otherwise you'll have no way to get and set the values for this. There is a way around it. You can do JSON property and then call this name, for instance. This would work and it would serialize it then. But if you didn't want to do that, then you would need the public getter and setter. So let's go ahead and go to armor data. So armor data is going to have a private float m defense. And this is going to be in its simplest form, guys. It's going to have more in the actual game, but we're not going to worry about that right now. So this is going to be defense get return m defense, set m defense equals value. And then we're going to have a getter and setter, or I don't know why I keep calling it that, a constructor. It's going to have a default constructor, which is going to provide this, and then new armor, and then 10, well, actually say 15 just to show that it's different. So kind of how I set these up is I go about the way that the previous one was done. So since this was string name int cost, I'm going to continue to do that, but then do another one, name cost, and then we'll say 5.0 for the defense. We'll actually do 25. Okay, and then one more. String name int cost float defense. Okay. Space is driving me nuts. Okay. Now, for when you inherit from something, you're going to want to call base name cost, and then provide the instructions on how to implement the defense. So we're going to do m defense equals defense. Okay, so that's how you set up the defense. Now let's go ahead and copy this over, because I know that I'm only going to have one float in the weapon data as well, and it's going to be called damage. So m damage. I'm going to change these, and it's going to look ugly right now. I'm sorry guys, give me just a moment. Call this damage as well. This and that. Just a lot of copying and pasting right now. And then do 20. Okay, so this is kind of how the weapon data class should look. It looks exactly like the armor one. I changed a few values around. For example, there's damage now instead of defense. And then I changed the default cost of weapon to 12, and then the damage to 20, the default damage to 20. Now, of course, you could call this constructor here and provide a name, a cost, and a damage, or you can call the default one and have all of the values, new weapon, 12, and 20, be assigned to their appropriate and respective attributes as well. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. Go ahead and join me in the next one when we start working with the JSON.NET side of things.